Evolution is a key part of the high school science syllabus, but it's not an easy thing to teach. Its central component is natural selection, which is a subtle process. Natural selection involves changing genes over multiple generations, which is hard to see in the classroom. One trick is to use simulations. Because you are in control, you can have the multiple generations that are required to show natural selection at work. Some simulations are based on predators hunting artificial prey, and the evolutionary response of the prey can be seen in a very short time. Another approach is to focus on famous case histories of evolution in action. One of the most famous is the peppered moth, which lives in the Midlands of England. The moth is a light colour and is hard to see when resting on tree trunks. But during the Industrial Revolution, biologists noticed a new black form of the moth, which was well camouflaged on the dark trunks of trees covered in soot. This was confirmed to be an example of evolution by natural selection, and the peppered moth has featured in biology textbooks ever since. Simulations and peppered moths come together in an online resource hosted at biologycorner.com. There's a worksheet with a link to a shockwave module. The module has 4 chapters. 3 of these present background information on the peppered moth, but the last one is a game where you play the part of a hungry bird that needs to feed on peppered moths. You can be feeding in a light forest or in a dark forest where the tree trunks are sooty. You have a minute in each forest. Dark moths and light moths fly into the field of view and you use the mouse to attack them as they move. There's some satisfying audio feedback as you successfully crunch down on chitin and a squawk if you miss. The minute starts with a 50-50 ratio of white to dark moths, and as you hunt, the status bar gives you a real-time update as that ratio changes. So, is this module better than reading a textbook? Perhaps. The simulation is nicely designed with good graphics and makes you want to play until the end. It reinforces the fundamental point that white peppered moths are hard to see in a light forest and black moths are hard to see in a dark forest. The results are presented in an easy to understand chart, and you can see the results chart being built as you prey on the moths. And the content of the first 3 chapters is good, with one having background on peppered moths, another on the impact of pollution on the moths, and the third talks about the scientific research. But the presentation of these chapters is very ordinary. Each is split into a number of paragraphs, and you read each paragraph one at a time, and you have to click on the arrow to get to the next one. And if, like me, you find this really irritating, then you have science on your side. There is plenty of research that indicates having to click through readings results in lower levels of comprehension. What about the simulation itself? Does it really provide an insight into the action of natural selection on the peppered moths? Well, yes and no. The simulation addresses the selection pressure acting on the moths, which is a combination of camouflage and predation, and it does this pretty well. But evolution by natural selection is a multi-generational process, and the simulation only shows a single generation. It would have been good to simulate multiple generations, starting with a clean forest, mostly white moths, and going forward through time as trees get darker. The results chart would then show the proportion of black moths changing across generations, which is evolution in action. And the simulation would then have demonstrated the selective pressure, predation, and the evolutionary result. It's a missed opportunity, which is a shame given all of the work that's gone into the simulation module. The worksheet is straightforward, but the questions are more about trivial facts like which journal was the research published in. And this is disappointing because worksheet questions can be an important part of getting students to join the dots. These questions are fine for trivia but are unlikely to help students construct deep understanding. So, should you use the peppered moth module? If you pull the text onto one page and write some better questions for the worksheet, you could use the simulation to demonstrate the selection pressure that the moths were faced with. I wish the simulation had gone further, but I might use it as an opportunity to get the class to design a multi-generation simulation. And that would be a very interesting learning experience for them.